All righty then. Hey, Jim, miss you too. Is it time? Oh, hey, we got a minute. No wonder they didn't shut the door all the way. I thought they were closing us in. Have you guys heard about the Canary Islands? I can ride that one this whole conference. Whoa, hey, stuff's falling. It's all fun and games till your muffin ends up on the ground. Your $24 muffin. Prices have gone up rather significantly, and the good news, the Culinary Union has signed a contract with Caesars. I was concerned because they were supposed to go on strike Friday, and the union sends me a note on like Saturday saying that, oh, hey, make sure you get it in your contract that if the hotel is struck that they have to that they can let you out of. I signed a contract 3 years ago. Telling me on Saturday for a strike that's going to happen on Friday, that doesn't help me a whole lot. So thank goodness. Rave is, I wasn't worried about being here and being set up for Rave. What I was worried about is readers not willing to, I wouldn't cross the picket line. Readers wouldn't cross the picket line. So that's not going to be an issue because Caesars overall, so Paris, here, Caesars across the street are all good come Friday. And good for the Culinary Union, that those folks, which also includes the housekeeping, that those folks hopefully got what they want and needed. Because I cheer for, well, this is me. I cheer for the people that make our lives worth living. Like come down here. I mean, I tip the housekeeping every day. And tip well for the servers, even tip the kitchen staff. Because might as well make it good. And they'll remember you, and they remember us as a group. All right, preparing for the afterlife. If you wait until after the author is gone, it's going to be really, really painful. And I've seen a couple, that I've finished series for 3 different authors who passed away. And one author, they found 3.5 books on his computer. He was an all-world Western author. This was Frank Roederis. And I mean, he had the Western Writer of the Year for like 4 times. But these were post-apocalyptic books, which he never delved into a genre, and he was only trad. So he didn't sell them. He didn't license them to anybody. So he just had them on his computer, and the family said, hey, they asked their publisher, Mike Bray from Wolfpack, hey, you know anybody that could finish this series for Frank? And he's like, hey, I know a guy. It's Vegas, that's how it works. And so I took it on, and I finished, he had 3.5 books. I finished it, made an 8-book series. The books were only 30,000 words. I mean, he had a folksy technique, and no matter what you write, I recommend you read a Louis L'Amour or a Zane Grey. They have a very engaging writing style, very folksy, homey, and read it. Even if you think, hey, it's Westerns, I mean, era and time, it's a long time ago. It's still, you can always improve your writing. But I finished that series, and I had nothing. I had 3.5 books, no notes, nothing. I finished John Hindmarsh's series. He was 4 books into a 6-book series. He had all 6 covers. The 5th book, he had a long conversation with his son. When I tried to talk to him, his cancer and his shingles were so bad he couldn't talk anything about the plot or about the story. Just about, basically, can we take care of my wife? Can we do those things? So, I mean, heart-wrenching, but it didn't help me write the book. But he did have a good conversation with his son, so now it's third-party hearsay, and we did the best we could with book 5. It sold pretty well. And then book 6, all we had was the cover. The cover. So, I mean, nobody plans to die before they finish a series. Because, of course, I'm going to finish the series, so of course I have to live. But the bottom line is nobody gets out alive. We're all going to pass away. There's a 100% chance of that. It's history. I am a lawyer, and I wouldn't do family law, that's something different, but estate planning. I've written a lot of wills, a lot of wills. You know the one thing that's constant with those wills? People won't execute them. 9 out of every 10, the people I wrote the wills for did not execute them. Because executing them was, and I talked to so many people, so I stopped doing them. I'm like, forget it, I'm not gonna invest this time, because this is to make living easier. I'm taken care of. It's like having a good investment portfolio, having savings accounts for your kids so they can go to college. All the good stuff that will outlive you. But by not having a will, you're screwing them. But they just, hey, if I execute this will, it means I've just committed that I'm going to die. And that's a mindset that I can't get my head wrapped around. You've got the will. All you gotta do is get a couple witnesses, sign off, declare victory. I usually do self-attesting wills as well. So you get the witnesses sign, which state law is different. Every state is different. But generally, the self-attesting is then you get a notary to sign that these witnesses are signing they don't have to know what's in the will. They just have to know that it's a will, it's your will, and they're signing saying, I've witnessed that you signed this will. They don't have to know anything that's in it. That's the weird thing about notary. I was a notary at one point in time for Pennsylvania. I tested exactly one. But I got this cool stamp where I could do my... But so you can get it notarized. And the thing with self-attesting will is then they don't have to try to find those people, because hopefully you live way longer than when you get that will signed. And if it's self-attesting, then they don't have to hunt them down. All of those things can hold up probate, which is what a will is for. It goes to probate. Unless you don't have a whole lot of assets and you have joint accounts, and every state's different, but you can set yourself up to win without having to go to probate. And it's okay. It's okay to go to probate. But we'll try to avoid that because your assets could get tied up in probate. John Steinbeck's estate is still being contended. You know the worst part about that? It's none of his blood heirs. It's ex-wives of dead grandchildren who were the blood heir of John Steinbeck. So it's like one ex-wife fighting one ex-husband 2 generations down the road. I mean, it still draws $200,000 a year. I'm at a point in my career where $200,000, Jesus, why would you fight over that? But they are. They are. And they're not blood relatives. It's really a shame. So you won't survive, but your legacy could. You can set yourself up for a long, long-term approach. Edgar Rice Burroughs still has a estate. Robert E. Howard still has an estate. Even though that stuff's out of copyright, there's things you can do to rejuvenate it when you have an estate that's yours. We'll talk about what is your estate, who gets it, who administers the transfer and change, and then documentation and access. The most important, if you can take 2 things away from this presentation, it's get a will and document your IP. And more than your IP, you want to document your bank accounts in a way that, now you have to have somebody you trust. If you're single and you're not, you guys have a great relationship, great, husband, wife, you have shared accounts, all kinds of good things. That helps you immensely. America is set up for legal marriage and having those kinds of joint accounts, because then you're not leaving them hanging. Because if you have just your account, your wife has her account, and you die, guess who doesn't have access to your money, which is where maybe your retirement is coming in, maybe the Social Security payment, whatever it might be. And then it goes to so now you're just sitting there waiting. Well, hey, all this money's in that account, and I need to live, and I need to pay the mortgage, and you can lose your house while you're waiting for probate. Why would you set yourself up for that? Why would you set up somebody you love for that? get a will. You got a good will, you can go to probate quicker, maybe. But if you have joint accounts, you can transfer stuff outside of a will. That's what life insurance accounts for. That's what transfer on death. All my IRAs are transfer on death. Present a death certificate, money delivered to you. Straightforward. Documentation. And then, of course, IP, it's you got to document your stuff. The more books you have, the more documentation you need. And I bet you don't have it all organized properly yet. Okay, what is your state? People are like, I don't have an estate. I'm poor. Yeah, you do. You have a car. You have a house. Even if you have an apartment, you're making payments. You have stuff in that apartment. All of your stuff, equity, any real estate that you might own or have a share of. And this includes real estate that you're on somebody else's will for. If they didn't write it properly, say you pass away before your dad, and your dad's house goes to you, you pass away first, it's too much strain on the old man, he gives up the ghost after a year, what happens to his property that was only going to you? If you don't have a will, by law, whatever your state says, that's whoever will get that, because it will pass through the dead you to whoever got your stuff. So it's not just you and your stuff. Bank accounts, insurance. You probably have an insurance account somewhere that might pay $300 with your bank. Property, stocks, bonds, retirement plans. Remember the company you worked for 30 years ago? There might be a retirement. There may be something vested in there. And if you don't know about it, or your family doesn't know about it, it's going away. There's a lot of unclaimed property every year that gets donated to the U.S. government after sitting in some company's coffers for however long before it gets transferred over. And then, of course, what we're really here to talk about is your intellectual property, your IP. How do you transfer that? And then residuals from books, contracts, stuff published by others. I was in that anthology 5 years ago, and finally they're going to pay. I wrote a book for Disney. And those bastards. I mean, what, Orson Scott Card? What was it, 13 years before he finally, hey, this guy stopped paying me. Hey, we bought the contract, but we didn't buy your royalties. Well, yeah, you did. And then, so if your heirs aren't aware of that, they're not going to go after it. And very, very few companies, despite the law, will hunt you down to give you money. A guy in Nigeria is still trying to do it.
And he's a prince.
And we like him, hey, no problem. Your state is also minus your debts. Many of your debts will outlive you. Your mortgage on your house is probably the biggest one. If you are the sole source of income and you pass away and your spouse can't, and you don't have insurance to cover the shortcoming, even though we had plenty of money, my wife and I both got an insurance policy, a term, to cover the remaining principal on our mortgage. It's the only bill we have. We own our cars, we own everything else. Because it was one of those 2% loans. Why in the hell would I want to do that away? I get 5% of my savings account now. But we got insurance policies to pay that off. Because taking a $300,000 pop, why would you want to do that? Like, oh, hey, your spouse just died, and here you had to use all of your savings to cover the shortcoming in the mortgage. It may leave very little, but if it leaves anything, that's more than you had. And IP, it's like potential energy versus kinetic energy. You've got a brick hanging off the edge of a roof. You can calculate how much energy that has as potential energy. Or kinetic energy, you can just let the thing fall and measure it when it hits the ground. Same amount of energy, just in two different states, potential versus kinetic. So How much do you really have? And most people are upside down to some regard. You've got a new car, so if you can sell it right away before you have to make a bunch of payments or miss payments, and all of that will come out of your estate. So if you have a savings account but you owe 20 grand on your car, do you want to turn the car back in, which a dead person can't have bad credit, so maybe that's the right answer, to sell the car. But what if the car isn't worth as much as you owe? That bank, that credit union, they're going to want the delta. They're going to want the difference. So these are the challenges you leave with your heirs. If you don't have, and I would always recommend a term policy, pretty much no matter how broken you are or old you are or whether you've had cancer or something, have enough to at least cover the debts so you don't leave your children burdened or a spouse burdened with whatever's extra. What's that delta between here's how much I have and here's how much I owe, and the owe part that can't be sold. And you thought it was just a fender bender. That could be a $5,000 reduction in the value of that vehicle. And then what I just found out, like when John Hindmarsh passed away, he was exactly like me. He had the subscription to Grammarly, Book Funnel, Pro Writing Aid. He had all of these subscriptions, and his credit card is still good because it's a joint card with his wife. And so she would call me about once every week. Hey, do I need this? Do I need BookBrush? Are you doing any graphics? What do you mean graphics? No, you don't need it then. But those kind of things, and you look at them. What are they? $120, $170 each month? A Book Funnel. Who are they? You need them. So, because he still has people cycling in and getting into his, because he has all that automated properly. But still people joining the email list. But those recurring costs, yeah, if I passed away today standing here, probably thousands of dollars in recurring costs that I'd stick my wife because I don't have it documented of each month. Now I got a great spreadsheet, I've got an accountant, we'd figure it out, but it would take time. And once again, I would hope they're a little bit distraught and aren't in a rush to go through, oh, hey, let's cancel this. Ooh, there's a $120 bonus next month. So your estate is your wealth minus your debts. Your wealth, your principal, your cash flow, all of that minus your debts. And understand my retirement from the Marine Corps, that will end when I die. I did not take a survivor benefit plan. Because I retired when I was 39. Why in the hell would I give up a third of my retirement for... Yeah, that made no sense to me. Okay, legal tools to put into place before you die. And this is important, before you die. And don't wait. You don't need a catastrophic incident like me in ICU before thinking, wow, geez, I really need to do this stuff. Banking accounts that transfer on death, because now it works outside of probate. If there's any issues with probate is simply going to a judge to sign over your accounts, because nobody can transfer the title on your car if it's in only your name. Nobody can do that. A judge has to direct that. Nobody can give access to your bank accounts that are just in your name. A judge has to do that, and that is what probate is for. Now, my father-in-law, when he passed away unexpectedly at 58 years old, they had all joint accounts. We didn't even have to go to probate. Everything was taken care of. Now, we did a lot of stuff. I put on my lawyer hat. We did got a lot of copies of the death certificate and shipped them around, make sure we got those death benefits from the union, death benefits from his retirement, death benefit, all of that started. So there was still a lot of work to do, but it was so much easier because Mom had access to the checking account, had the credit card. We paid off his mortgage. We just took care of everything because we could. We didn't have to go before a judge and have that delay because everything was transfer on death. Your funded accounts, as you get older, I hope that you have a 401k, an IRA, or a retirement of some kind, and know what it means. My dad, he was actually grousing a little bit, as my dad can do. My mother passed away this January. And my dad, his retirement that he's been getting for 36 years now, he took like the survivor benefit plan. He cut off a section, like a piece, 30%, 25% each month, so to go into a fund. So if he passed away first, my mom would still get his retirement. Well, when mom passes away first, he called him and said, hey, she passed away, you can add that 150 back in. That's not how it works. Once you take it, you're stuck with it forever. Probably check with your retirement plan. If you have that kind of retirement plan, that's a funded plan, not a IRA, SEP IRA, or a 401k type plan. Yeah. So needless to say, he was mad. He was mad that the union didn't tell him about that 40 years ago. Beneficiary of your life insurance, make sure they're still sound. My policies, I usually had term policies. I had a whole life that I cashed in. So my current term policy goes to my wife. And of course, I always have a couple levels. Goes to my wife, goes to my son, goes to my grandkids. The ability to modify your IP. Let's get back into IP, your intellectual property. A literary executor. This is you can add it as a codicil, which is a legal addendum to a will. And I like a codicil because it's easy. You just add it in. Add it to the will after you have the foundation document done. So get a will done in your state. I don't know if I uploaded a template to the session or not, but I've got one. And then I also have a template for a literary executor. It's pretty simple. It says this person's responsible for managing my IP, earning money. They get 10%, and you can always modify that. They get 8.5 or 12, whatever you want to do, of the revenue. And the rest of it, advertising. You can have your whatever your druthers are. Have your people, have your literary executor follow those. Advertise my books, make money. And then what happens with that income that you get? For me, my literary executor is going to fund an estate trust. An estate trust, something that will be developed after I pass away. I've got my guidance on that. I do not have a living trust. That's another way. We'll talk about that in a bit. Biggest thing is your passwords. Passwords, access to your digital world. And when John Hindmarsh passed away, we talked to Amazon. And they said, oh, geez, you have to do this. The new person will have to start their own account, and you have to then transfer the stuff. We'll carry over your reviews, trust that. And she said, but we have a joint account, both of us. And they looked around and they said, then don't do anything. And most importantly, what they were looking at was, as long as your the payments for your Amazon ads and your payment accounts, who they paid, and your tax thing were identical, because they had everything in both their names, then you don't have to do anything. That was their advice. You don't have to do anything. So, I mean, they've shared the password with me. I work as a literary executor on the account, and we run ads. We published a couple new books under John's account, and it's all good. Amazon knows about it, and they're okay with it because of that joint account. Anything that we spend, it gets paid out of John's credit card, which was John and Kathy's credit card, because they're both of theirs. By the letter of the law, you probably should change, but to who? She's not an author. Put it into some third party, create a company, which is another thing to do. I'm not a fan of that. I know a lot of people say, well, you have a company and you put all your IP into this company, and then if you die, so what? And we're indies. That company is us. And I think that's the personal touch that goes outside of what you can do. So I don't throw any funds, I don't throw anything into a company. My company is me, it's sole proprietorship, so it's kind of irrelevant in, hey, just put it into the company. or the company trust, the company handles it. So those passwords and access to the digital world are key. Safety valves. That's a business structure with survivorship details in your articles of incorporation. So even as a sole proprietorship, what do you do? Just simple, put it in there. And should I pass away, it goes to my wife. My wife would have no idea what to do with my stuff. No idea at all. And you know what happens to your books if you stop advertising? If you stop pushing them? If you stop publishing new books? It will taper off to nothing. Is that what you want to do to your family? Get your will, designate your assets, and when you do your will, who is your executor? Who is your executor? Someone who can manage the process, who cares about you, but not who is going to be so devastated they're completely incapacitated. Because the executor has a lot of duties that they have. They are required to notify everyone who's in your will. So if you got a cutesy will with, hey, here's something to nephew Billy, the executor has to notify before the funeral. Is your executor going to have the capacity to do that? You got to find somebody who cares, but isn't so close that they're destroyed by your passing, that they physically can't function. So think about that. The executor is a critical position. Now the executor doesn't have, everything they do is under, because once they start transferring money out, like you've gone to probate, the executor is under the watch of the judge. So they don't even have to be super trustworthy. They just have to do some things. It's not like, oh, they've got access, they're going to steal me blind. No. The judge is watching. They have to count for every penny. It's really rude how much they have to do. And a benefit of a joint bank account for your business. Even if you have a business account, make sure you have like a co-signatory on that, like your wife. I don't trust business partners, so I'm not going to give them access to the money. But my wife, absolutely. She spends less than I do, so it's fine. Joint names on payment method for advertising, that's a credit card. That's important. What happens if you stop paying your ads? They stop. Even if your books are doing great, all your ads will stop because the credit card didn't hit. And then they'll contact the email on the account. So if your wife doesn't have access to your email, how is she ever going to know that the credit card needs to be rejuvenated? All those little things that are big things, really big things. Recurring payments. And does a business own or operate assets? So you kind of have to be aware of taxes too, but not so much. This is if you have an accountant or can wing an accountant. Like, did you only do a partial depreciation off some new stuff last year? So this is stuff your accountant would need to know for your heirs. So you aren't not depreciating when you should or depreciating when you shouldn't. That you do 100% depreciation. Now what happens after you pass away? Your literary executor lets your fans know. I don't know how many times we told John's fans, and on the sixth and final book, this is the second book I wrote for him, too many fans are like, boy, this doesn't read like your old stuff, John. I think I'm going to stop reading you. Thanks for that. I don't know how many times. Just put it in the front matter, put it in the back matter. Hey, this is written on for John's family. In the back matter, yeah, John passed away 2 years ago. Hey, geez. This doesn't sound like you, John. What happened? Are you sick? Yeah. Notify Amazon, notify your suppliers, your distributors. If you go through Draft Digital, let them know and what to do. And if you have those joint accounts, you can have a better conversation, as in, you're good, don't do anything, just make sure the credit card is refreshed before any kind of recurring payments come due. And have a list of your deductible recurring expenses, like BookFunnel, like Pro Writing Aid, like Grammarly, whatever it might be. Just have a list of, so somebody knows when they're going to come up, and that helps you too. I was like, oh, hey, I got a $120 charge, or surprise, DocuSign, those bastards, is up to $960 for a year of DocuSign. Woofu is like $480. I mean, I got enough money in the check account, I'm okay, but it's, what if you weren't expecting that? So your IP, yeah, I know that's not on the slide. How about that? Not following the slide. It's almost like it's a outline. Your intellectual property is the one thing that will carry over. As long as people remember who you are, they'll remember you. But your intellectual property can live on forever. Look at some of the stuff you're reading today. Look at some of the stuff that has been licensed for TV and for movies. Edgar Rice Burroughs, he died a long time ago. Jules Verne died a long time ago. Agatha Christie died not so long ago, which I found out, I was surprised. She only died in like 76, 80, lived a long time. Because the first Poirot was 1929. You know what the one great thing is about all these people we remember? The authors from a long, long time ago? They were the pulp writers. So yeah, Litfic, those folks who are big in the short term here, will they be around in 100 years? Only the readers decide. Fun. Fun books that make people feel good, that are easy to read, and have a deeper message so you can reread them. Those are the books that'll be around. Edgar Rice Burroughs. I think the John Carter movie was actually pretty damn good. I liked it. It helped to have read all the books, of course, but I liked it. All right, living trust. A living trust. This is a trust you fund while you're still alive. Revocable, irrevocable. These are good terms later. A revocable trust will have tax implications now, as in you have to pay tax. An irrevocable trust is generally a tax avoidance methodology. So when you start making good money, big money, and you're getting towards that time where, maybe I need to set aside some of this income, so I only have to pay 30% instead of 39.6%. Here's what I can do, and it can drop you a tax bracket. But irrevocable, once you fund it, that money is in there. But what it does is it allows you to designate better for probate what to do with the money, what to do with your money. And there's the nest egg, it's right there. It's looking at your heirs saying, I got you. Living trust, and you're funding it now, so you have control. You can keep putting stuff in there. If it's irrevocable, you can't take it out, but if it's revocable, hey, you're paying taxes on it now, but you can adjust things. So if somebody pisses you off, hey, you're out of here. There's $10,000 that I'm using on a trip to Vegas. Could have been yours. A literary trust, after you pass away, a literary trust, this is a device where your books fund. Anne McCaffrey, I think she has a literary trust. So all of her works fund this for her kids. An estate trust. This is where you just put everything from your estate into a trust. Trust. How do you develop a trust? I don't have a template because you have to go to a lawyer. You have to have a lawyer draft it. And dry spot. If like say your bank has great mutual funds, has CDs, they will only take a direction from a lawyer drafted trust that has been blessed as a trust, and then they'll fund that. So you can buy those funds, and those funds will go into that trust, but it has to be drafted by a lawyer and blessed by a judge, I believe. Trust, because it's a legal vehicle. It's like a bank account. You can't just go and say, hey, I want a bank account. I mean, you got to show all this ID, you got to do stuff, you got to sign away stuff. But the trust, they all have to be drafted. You can't just wing one. Who manages your trust? Is it a committee? Is it a single person? This is important. It's almost as important as your executor for your estate, and probably more so, because they're responsible for making sure that you make enough money that you can deliver to others. What's the purpose? That's the irrevocable living trust. Tax avoidance. You can do that now. Do you have what you need? Living below your means is probably the best thing you can do for your life, to have a good life. Living above your means, then you're mortgaging your future, or hoping that you can make more next month or more next year. Do you have a good plan for that, or is hope your plan? Because I'll tell you, hope is a lousy plan. And then when you set up the trust, how you fund it, how it's dispersed, you'd set up all that as part of the trust. And one thing that when I talked to my brother about a trust that he set up for his kids, blood relatives, he put that in there. That's because of the Steinbeck case. I'm like, here, so there's no argument. It's a blood relative going, and then ex-spouses 2 generations hence aren't fighting. Here's some terminology of a trust, and this is all, I uploaded this to Sked, so you've got it. Person who creates trust is called the grantor or the settler. The person managing the money and property is called the trustee. And the trustee can be you or someone else. Well, you, as long as you get the trust before you die, then you would be a really bad choice afterwards. The person who receives the money or property from the trust is called the beneficiary. The money and property in the trust are called the trust assets. The trustee must follow the instructions in the trust document describing how to manage and give out the trust assets and how long the trust lasts. That's why you go to a lawyer to get the stuff drafted, and go to a trust attorney to get the stuff drafted, because they'll have all this. You don't have to remember, oh man, I got to make sure I put an end date on there. No, the lawyer will ask you specifically, how long? Is it when your children turn 25? Is it for the life of the principal of the trust? What is it? And they'll walk you through it, and you will be better for it. 6 minutes. All right. How a trust might benefit you: protect and preserve your assets, intellectual property. The trust can handle that. The trust can manage that. Because when you look at, because I bring up Ann McCaffrey because I know she has a trust. You see Dragon Riders of Pern books hop up on sale all the time. I think Dragon Riders was in a book bub for $1.99 or $2.99 or something for the first 3 books, like last week, because of a literary trust. It's in there. They're managing it. They're making money for the account. They're moving forward. I think that's great. That is how to do it. You customize and control how your wealth is distributed. So here's how it's managed. Here's the purpose of it: make more money, keep these books alive, and then distribute that money to my kids. Minimize taxes. You can do that right now while you're still alive. Address family dynamics. If you have somebody that's a basket case with money, one of your kids, you don't want to give them all your money. Give them $100,000, they'll spend $110,000. You don't want to put them in that position. So you can manage for this part, this share, they get X amount each month, whether a percentage, whether a flat rate, or looked at the actuarial tables. Oh, she's estimated to live until 76, she's 70, so 6 years of distributions look like this. Could be that. Anything goes. You determine it when you build the trust. And revocable and irrevocable. Irrevocable is you lose control of being able to access those funds. It's one and done. They go in, they stay in, they're going to whoever you designate. So what do you do right now? Will. You got to get a will. Yeah, that's not the first bullet, is it? Make sure you have a will. And the will can be very simple. All to wife. But make sure you put a second level in there in case you're not used to writing a will every year, that if my wife passes away, this person next. And if you want to give it to multiple people, 25%, you have to have the if. If this person predeceases me, then. Make sure your financial accounts are up to date and are set up to continue funding your business. There's some things that you can't shut off, because the general guidance from the U.S. is everything freezes the second you pass away. But they let a spouse have living funds from a joint account, even though everything's supposed to freeze. But if you have just your account, only your name is on it, it freezes until a judge signs off a document saying what to do with that money. Make sure your IP is tracked and contracts are in place in one place with the providers listed, so they know who did your cover. So when you get a love note from, say, Amazon saying, hey, we think you have AI elements in your cover or have elements that you aren't licensed to use in your cover, what do? You know who to go to and say, hey, can you send me a note saying you drew these or whatever they are, or you have the license from Deposit Photo. If you don't have that information, you know what happens? They take the book down, they might take the whole account down. Then what do? Hey, I got all Dad's IP and I can't publish on Amazon. That's a crappy thing to do to your kids. Only you can keep your records straight. I recommend a single spreadsheet that has your title, like book length, maybe even if you're cool with links, a link to where that final original document is, the one you uploaded and is still editable. Don't link to the EPUB file, link to the actual Word or Scrivener or the file that could be edited if need be. Because you know what happens if you have errors in your file and Amazon says, oh, hey, there's user-reported errors in this file, and you can't edit it? Yeah, you could lose the book. You could lose your account. I've got two of those. I think there's two of those in John's account that I need to get to. It took me a long time to find his original final file, and I think I found it. Haphazard files and records will lead to your legacy crashing and burning. It's not anything you want to do. And yes, it sucks a whole lot. When you got one book, it's fine. I have 189 titles. I've got shit everywhere. I've got my contracts, and I have I think a dozen different collaborators who I'm paying on a monthly, quarterly basis everywhere. Now, a provision I made was for my collaborators where they were the primary writer, they get the book and they get the full IP because I've made enough money, and this one I don't want to drop that on my literary executor. Like Julia already gave, yeah, here, take the books back, you wrote them. I mean, it's okay, makes it easy. So get rid of some IP and bring it down to a more manageable number. So that's one thing that I've done in my literary codicil, my literary executor codicil that I put in. 10, 9, 8. All right, looks like I'm done. Hey, thank you very much. Thank you.